And welcome back, everybody. This is JC, part of Wendy and JC. We're back for you again on another episode, another series of shows here for you. And it's our pleasure to be back for you as well. Wendy Sellers, the HR lady. How are you?
Hey, everybody. How you doing? I'm good. It's hot out. It's summer still and trying my best to enjoy it. Unfortunately, I keep getting phone calls from people that aren't even my clients. I just got one today too. Says, "Hey, I need help with recruiting. I can't find people. Can you help me?" So that is what our topic is going to be about in this podcast. And this series is about, turnover statistics and how to hire people in this crazy, crazy world that literally by the day seems to continue to change.
Every time I talk to you, it sounds like you're constantly getting the calls. The calls that people are looking to fill slots, fill positions, fill career tracks. And there's just not enough people out there to make that happen. Is it the fact that they're not qualified enough, or they're just not getting the people coming to the table for these?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch. We already know there's not enough human beings out there, and specifically in the United States, to take over the jobs from the baby boomers. But even if there were, the jobs that the baby boomers are or were doing, and I don't mean that's in a negative way to baby boomers. The jobs that are opened need different skills. So even if the baby boomers were still hanging around for another 5, 10, 20 years, which some are, most of the jobs need different skills that just don't even exist, right. Even, for any age. And so they need different skills, different technology. A lot has changed during the pandemic. A lot of people are, as you and I were just chit-chatting about, working from home, and that's a whole other ball game. And so not only do you need to at least have the basic technology skills to be able to do that, and then with the folks that are working in person, a lot of those positions, even that equipment and technology on site has changed and continues to change and will continue, not just in the United States, but worldwide, which makes us competitive within our city, our county, our state, our country, and then across the entire globe. And maybe the moon someday too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not often we see the job description list out skills that require the abacus or the car catalog anymore. Things have changed. Things have changed. And sometimes the key talent you're looking for might actually be right under your nose. As of 2016, SHRM factored the average cost of new hires and what it costs to bring somebody on. And they averaged that out to be approximately $4,100. But you need to add in related costs like training, onboarding, team development, skills gaps, productivity and opportunity costs, and that number swells dramatically. The actual number of bringing an employee on board, not really sure. It could range anywhere, though, from $10,000 to $2 billion. Really depends who the person is, right? But look, one thing could be said for sure. Replacing an employee could actually be 2 times as expensive as keeping one, according to some articles and cited sources out there. Wendy, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, listen, if you have an unproductive employee who's calling off and they're even if they're showing up but they're not productive, or they're not as productive as you would like them to be, or that they can be, but for whatever reason, bad management, bad morale, low pay, something going on in their personal life. If you have a low productivity employee, obviously you would want them to get up to productivity levels that are desired, or you want to replace them. But so many companies don't even do that, because now you're losing some kind of knowledge that you don't have recorded, right? You don't have the training recorded. You don't have the development in place. This person shows up even though they're not productive and they're not going anywhere. That could actually kill morale of everybody else around you.
Big time.
And the productive employee says, forget it, I'm out of here. Or they say, well, I'm not out of here. I'm just going to do what this person over here does, and I'm going to do the bare minimum so I don't get fired. But with that said, I wanted to put that out there is even if somebody doesn't leave, you could be losing a lot of money. Once somebody leaves, or you just have a new position, let's just say you're growing and there's a new position and it's empty. The cost of even just putting a job ad out are so much higher than they were just pre-pandemic. So high.
52% of all voluntary resignations are allegedly preventable, according to a Gallup poll. Those who decide to leave jobs do typically claim that managers could have taken actions to prevent that departure. Specifically, respondents explain in the months leading up to the decision that leaders never asked these employees about their satisfaction with the job, nor spoke about the team members' future within the company.
Yep. Let's see. Voluntary termination. So people that say, I'm done, I'm quit, I'm out of here, could have been preventable? No way. You've got to be kidding me.
And they're actually claiming the statistic of 52%. So over half of those. So with just a little bit of engagement, a little bit of a leadership prowess, you could probably curtail that and get that down to, I don't know, maybe if you're a real smooth talker, get that down to 1 or 2%, maybe, right? I don't know. 52% is really high.
52% is very high. I mean, you're going to always lose some people at one point, just because people move around. They may be part of a family unit and the other half of the family moves. And if your job is in person or doesn't allow for virtual outside your state, you're going to lose people. There's going to be no choice of that, well, there's a little bit of a choice because if you are a remote work environment, and you want to hang on to somebody, well, then you might need to go work in another state and you pay the taxes there if it's a state that has taxes. So some of them are not always going to be preventable, but 52%, holy cow, that is a lot. And it usually is, based on what I find and why companies call me to help fix this. It's almost always something that the manager, the direct manager or the manager's manager can affect. So personality, communication. You want me to say that one more time? Communication. How about we communicate with our employees? Wouldn't that be nice?
Part of the changing evolution of the cultures within our organization, right? You've got years of the frozen middle stuck in place and years of bad habits, and trying to curtail that's not easy. Taking a look at the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, we've got some more numbers and metrics here for you about resignations. In 2021, resignations were at a record high of 3%. 4.5 million resignations all the way around. Some of the industries most affected were accommodation and food services, health, hospitality, transportation, warehousing, and utilities. They state here that mass departures in these areas were not particularly surprising given the pressures put on those fields during the pandemic. However, an uptick in quitting has touched many industries across the board, and the end of 2021 did not bring an end to the Great Resignation. Here we are in 2022, just over halfway now through the year. Do you feel that we're on track to fix that? I know the unemployment rate is dropping. Things are getting a little bit better there.
It's a really good question. I was reading the news today. Obviously we're almost into August 2022 when we're recording this, and we have a lot of things going on, specifically in the United States, but globally, just regarding like inflation and the costs of everything. And the federal government is going to, unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, make some changes to inflation so that they can try to control how much credit people get. That's really what it comes down to. But the bottom line is when you even have inflation go up a little bit or credit, the ability to get loans or credit or whatever be a little more difficult, it does negatively affect businesses who rely on credit and loans and things like that. So the reason I'm sharing that is I'm interested to see, and I really, really hope that it's going to have a null effect. I'm interested to see if unemployment is going to go back up over the rest of this calendar year in 2022 in the United States. And if it does, how much and what industries are going to be affected. We're seeing in the news, I'm sure you're seeing and you're reading, famous entrepreneurs that are out there and stopping hiring, mass hiring, and even doing layoffs, mass layoffs. And it's confusing to me and to a lot of other people because we can't find people. And then these giant companies are doing layoffs because they're expecting the economy to have a downturn or a tank. So I'm not an economist, but I'm interested to see what is going to happen over the next few months.
Yeah, 100%. The more recent news there is the Federal Reserve put into place a 0.75% point rate rise in stride. And Fed Chairman Jerome Powell, in his press conference, did leave the door open for a slowdown in tightening. Now, the S&P 500 did close up 2.6% on the news of that rate raise right there, finishing above 4,000, while the Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 1.4%. So the market is rebounding on the news of the rate raise right there. I concur with you, though. It will be interesting to see what pans out with that in the months to come.
Yeah. I mean, my gut, my intuition, I hate when people say my gut feeling because your gut doesn't have feelings, but
well, except for when you're hungry,
there.
Right?
Yeah, that was taken care of a little while ago. But my intuition is that for at least probably the rest of this year, the people that have been trying to hire, especially small businesses, and it's just one or two positions here or there, they're probably going to still need those roles, and it's still going to be difficult to hire because if you're like, I got a call today from a CPA firm and said, "Hey, I heard you speak at a conference recently. I'm at my wit's end. I can't find anybody." So I'm talking to that person tomorrow to get more information. I can't resolve your problem until I get more information. But I know for a fact that industry is short on CPAs. And then if you're in the accounting world, for example, where you're actually doing auditing and things like that, a lot of people are going from public, where you need to be licensed, and going into corporations. And so the companies that were not your competitor before are now your competitor because they're stealing those employees.
Wow.
And those employees are saying, "Oh, I'll go over here to corporate because in theory, it's less stressful than the job that I have been, working in and work experience." So this also goes back to generally speaking, people want to have a less stressful life. And therefore, they're going to go to careers, even if it's in the same type of career, they're going to go to industries or companies that say, "Yeah, we're going to give you a little bit less stressful than where you've had before," and then actually follow through with that.
As you know, you got Wendy and JC right here. We're going to move directly into our next piece. Stand by, because this one's going to take a sharp turn. Let's put on our thinking caps real quick. It's been said, according to a Harvard Business Review, that mid-career employees are the group with the highest spike in resignations. Statistics show there was an increase of up to 20% over the past few years. The age group with that greatest increase in turnover was specifically the 30 to 45-year-old demographic. Rates slightly rose for the 25 to 30 and the 45 to 60 groups as well, and definitely dropped off for the 60 to 70-year-old sections. But specifically honing in on the mid-career employees and that huge spike with resignations up 20% right there. Wendy, what could an employer do? What strategies could they start to instill? What could they hone in on doing to change their path for the future on either trying to retain those employees or attract those who might be looking to move from one organization to another? Does it really come down to very simply explaining the benefits and all the perks and compensation package? Do you improve your job description and your compensation research? Where do we go?
Yeah, thanks for asking that. Let's try to focus a little bit right now on the recruiting piece, because oh my goodness, I'm sure we're going to have a few more podcasts coming up on how to retain people and engage them. But, I literally had a phone call this afternoon with one of my clients in a different state, and they are a state government client. And so they, or a county government client, I should say. And the HR person there, who is new and taking over some initiatives, said, what's the number one thing that I can do right now, because my hands are tied on a few things like compensation, but you and I, JC, will address that in a minute. She's like, my hands are tied on a lot of things. What can I do right now, like in the next couple weeks, to change something for recruiting? And I said, did you look at your website? And I said, please go find out who has the keys to the website, because it is awful. I went there pretending I was an applicant, and it took me 10 minutes to figure out where the apply button is. It also, so first of all, if you have a job ad, make sure there's a link in the job ad to actually apply. But if you are an organization that people will just go to because they know of your name, like I said, this one was a county government. People are going to their website, can't even find the apply here link. So then we finally find it, and I have her on Zoom doing this. And she's like, oh my goodness, this is awful. I'm like, how did you find it? You're new here. How did you find this? And she said it was in the job link. But then we went to like the thing that says, oh, about our company and our benefits and our story. And it was awful, 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 awful.
Wow.
I had to click like 7 times, literally to read about 10 paragraphs. It was on 7 different pages. One page had 1 paragraph. Then I had to go back and then go to the next thing. And I'm like, oh, Jesus. Most people are doing this on their phones. So we have to make it super intuitive. You need to get your marketing department, your business development, or your sales department, whoever has the keys to the website. Even if you just have where you click here and they open up an image, and it has on the image a picture of, you get 3 weeks vacation. We have reviews every quarter. Here are our amazing benefits. Here's our employee resources, our groups. All too often, I also see, including this website that I was looking at earlier today, it said benefits, and I clicked there, and all it was talking about was the health insurance. Now, I thought it was cool that they had the health insurance where I, as a candidate, can go there and actually see what it's going to cost me, because that alone will tell me, yes, I'm going to apply, or no, I'm not, if it's cheaper at the place I'm at now. But not everybody needs health insurance. Their spouse or another family might have it, or they might have health insurance, as a veteran or something like that through another resource.
Oh, true. Very true.
So like so many people focus on, oh, well, we don't have benefits. I'm like, yes, you do. You have sick time, you have vacation, you have PTO, you have 4-day work weeks, you have, half day Fridays or no days in the summer, whatever it might be, work from home. We have to sell our benefits, and we have to understand what they are. And then finally, what I want to say about the benefits is, you were just mentioning about age groups. Every age group usually wants something different, but even within the same age group, they may want something different. Most younger individuals are delaying to much later in life, or not at all, having families. And so some of those benefits that are targeted towards families may not be appealing to those individuals who, don't have families, don't want families, or are delaying that till later in life. And then let's look at the other side for the individuals who are maybe closer to retirement, or no longer have children that are, say, maybe going to be on their benefits plans. Like, what else do you have for them? So it's really taking off that HR hat and putting on that marketing hat.
And do you have something to reimburse for education? You have something that could help someone more easily take care of some of those student loan debts that they might currently be in the midst of accruing or have already accrued. Not necessarily a national debt forgiveness on that, so to speak, on the shoulders of you, the employer. But do you have something in place like that? Just a few years back, it was as simple as let's put in a nap pod and a Keurig. But nowadays, it's 1 in 4 employees quit the jobs because they have a deep desire to work from home. And there's a misalignment to a degree between an employee's desire, let it be for the hybrid work desire or true remote otherwise, and what the leader visions or what they've thought or have been led to believe over the years. A November 2021 Gartner survey of more than 3,500 employees revealed less than half believe remote working is a good thing, a bad thing? What are we talking about there, Wendy?
Well, I mean, I think it just depends on where you come from, like mindset wise. So a lot of executives are saying, yeah, I don't care. It worked for the past 2.5 years and it worked fine. I'm fine with working from home. Not only that is if you have the option as a business to be able to let your employees work from home, you can also save on real estate, right? You can save on all that desk space and everything, and which is incredibly expensive. But how about you ask your employees what they want, and then you use that for the openings moving forward. Not everybody wants to work at home. I personally love it, but not everybody wants to do that. Some people want to get away from their families. And then other people just say, you know what, my job or my personality style requires me to be around other people and to be talking and communicating and maybe creative with other people. So hybrid is an option, but you're not going to know unless you ask. Other executives may be in the mindset that, no, I need to see people next to me in order for me to think they're productive. And I'm sorry, anybody that's listening today, you're wrong. You're 100% wrong. If you allowed people to work for 2.5 years, I'm just throwing out that number, or longer, and you didn't fire them, and now you're saying they were unsuccessful or they were not productive, then you're a part of the problem. Now, I commend you for paying them for 2 to 3 years while they were unproductive. But if I was your board of directors, I would be firing you for doing that.
Strong words from a strong woman, the HR lady. Look, in that Gartner survey they went on, they said, 70% of employees believe that on-site workers are more likely to be promoted and paid more compared to remote workers as well. And they feel that the preferential tone employees perceive towards on-site workers is directly at odds with executives' own working preferences. Out of that same survey, 94% of executives whose work can be done remotely want to work remotely at least one day per week, and 24% of those executives want to be fully remote. Interesting statistics right there.
Yeah, it really is. It's a lot of interesting information. And you know what? I love looking at statistics and facts to see what's going on in the world and what the general population is saying. But when it comes to your company, you have to look at, what your employees want, and then not just what they want, because we can't just give everybody what they want, right? We have to say what can be done, what truly can be done remote or not remote, or hybrid or shortened work weeks. What I want to, turn this around into, though, is I want to go back to the job ad, and not even the job ad. Not even let's go to the job ad yet. I want to talk about, hey, Wendy, I have an ad. I have a CPA opening. Can you help me fill it?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm not putting your job ad up, though, until we do some research. And that 2 things. I want to do an intense compensation research so that we make sure that we're paying your new hire what they're worth and what the community and the compensation, the competitors would be paying them. But then you're also going to have to align your other employees in those same roles. So if you're saying, okay, we have I'll just say a CPA, because that happened to be a phone call I got today, and we want to pay them X, which is 20% more than we have paid in the past. Well, if you have 3 other positions in that role, you need to figure out how you're going to increase them too, because they're going to find out. And they're going to probably walk. So while you get one person, you're going to lose another. Does that make sense?
It does. And I do have a question for you in this regard. How often should you review your compensation package? How often should you review the marketplace like that? Should it be annual, biannual?
It's funny. If you asked me this pre-pandemic, I would say probably biannual is okay. Or even, every 3 years. But no, now I'm saying every year, if not every 6 months. And that's hard. And the bigger the company is, that is time intense. But there are some easy ways around this. The first shot. So if you're saying tomorrow we're going to start doing this, the first time that you do it is going to be incredibly time intense and difficult, because you need to go and every person that is employed on your payroll, whether part-time, full-time, whatever it might be, they need to have an updated job description. And let's face it, JC, most companies don't update their job descriptions ever. If not, even if and many small companies don't even have job descriptions. They have a few sentences and that's it. And I am a huge proponent of having a up-to-date and accurate job description. Period.
You bring something fantastic to the table there. So say we're in the widget organization, right? And I've got a bunch of workers, varied skill levels, and they all have the same title, floor worker, right? And for my my compensation review, I'm just going to lump them all together. But their skills are vastly different. Sometimes employers allow titles to remain very freeform, and they haven't cleaned them up over the years. They've grouped them together in very unorganized ways. And then when you come to your compensation review, you could actually be putting your organization at risk by putting too many people in one bucket and misaligning that compensation, right?
Absolutely. I think, I don't want to say people are lazy when they do that, but what it comes down to is they might be using that title to bill their clients or customers. And so they just keep the title vague, and so that they can bill the highest title or maybe the lowest, depending on their agreements with their customers. But it's going to get them in hot water, because if you're saying somebody's a production worker, for example, but this production worker just came out of high school or didn't even finish high school and is there working with zero experience, and you're having to train them. And you're paying them X amount. And then you have this production worker over here who, by the way, has the experience in the industry, in the field for the past 15 years. And is it the one that is actually training everybody? Even if you're paying them a little bit different, you can get yourself into major hot water when it comes to any kind of investigation by the Department of Labor, for example. If somebody filed a workers' comp suit, something like that. Racial discrimination, age discrimination. This is where the job descriptions, I really don't care about the titles, although employees do, but the job description needs to be clear that says, hey, 18-year-old person who's starting with us and has no life experience or work experience, this is your job description. Here are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required to do this job. Here's ones that you have to have, the knowledge, skills, and abilities before you come in. And these other ones we're going to train you on. So don't worry about that. We're going to train you as long as you're capable of being trained, which means you have to interview, for capability to be trained as well. And most of us don't do that because we're too busy. So the knowledge, skills, and abilities important, but then really clearly outlining what are the employees, the candidates, soon to be employee, essential work duties every single day. What is their essential work duties? Are they doing this every single day repetitively? Are they doing this once a week? Are they doing this once a month? If they're only doing it once a month or once every couple months, then it's non-essential. And that moves to the non-essential work duties area on the job description. And why do we need non-essential work duties? In case somebody wants an accommodation or needs an accommodation for perhaps maybe a disability. And employers have to comply with that. Do they find a way around it? Yep. And that's why they can't find anybody, and that's why they have a bad reputation.
I got a question for you on the knowledge, skills, abilities that you brought up there. And when we look at the marketplace, we look at the people that we're recruiting and we're attracting to our organization. If they don't necessarily have all the knowledge, skills, and abilities that you're looking for to fill that role, probably would be a good idea that you've got a plan in place for that training piece so that it's very clear and understood to everyone that you're interviewing that you're also going to help upskill them while they're with you, that you value your employees. And it could be part of your marketing plan when it comes down to things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for bringing that up. It really could be because, like we said at the beginning of this session, is that many of the skills that we're looking for just don't exist, or very few people have them. So we have to, especially when it comes to technology, because technology changes so quick that the individuals just don't have the skills. Nobody out there in the marketplace does, or very rarely do they. And we should be selling it as, hey, these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that are required. But by the way, these are the knowledge, skills, and abilities that we're going to teach you. And we have a plan. It's a 3-month plan, a 6-month plan. If it's a 3-year plan, yeah, you're probably not going to retain employees. Now, if it's something that requires
unless maybe you're paying for their master's degree through that process. Who knows, right?
I was gonna use PhD, right?
There you go, the PhD.
Yeah. So the master's, the PhD. But let's face it, most of our skills that are required, especially the newer ones, are things that not most of them, but a lot of them you can learn. You can learn without having to go to a formal college. Maybe you need to create a college within your company. You know, you can call it the XYZ college or education program or whatever it might be. But then you actually have to dump money and time into it.
The HR Ladies College of Compensation. There it is.
The HR Ladies College of Common Sense.
Even better. Even better. There's your next book title, by the way.
Yeah. Well, you're going to be very surprised if you open it, because I'm going to first say common sense isn't common. However, I'm going to go on to say, because common sense is not a sense. Common sense is a set of knowledge, skills, and abilities that someone has taught us, either unintentionally or intentionally.
Excellent
and then when we have a group of people in an area, it becomes a common set of knowledge, skills, and abilities, and a common sense. So there's my little information on the common sense thing. If anybody's ever heard me talk before in person or even on a podcast, that common sense word drives me crazy, because you really have to think like, well, where did I learn that? Oh yeah, somebody did teach me that. I didn't just wake up one day with that skill.
All right. So I got a question for you here. You know, a lot of people who are listening to this right now might not necessarily be in advertising, in sales, in marketing. They're listening to all the words of wisdom. They're taking excellent training courses. They're getting up to speed, but they don't have that $1 million skill set to write that perfect, that absolutely perfect job ad that they're coming to you to say, I want to get this out there. What are some of the best ways that they can move forward with getting help in writing that attractive sales piece and getting that crafted in a way? You already touched on it with some of the methodologies earlier in the other pieces there, but what do you recommend?
So one of my first recommendation is go to the internet and type in your job title that you're trying to fill and see what's out there, see what other people are advertising. And when you look at your competitor or somebody you don't know and you look at their job ad and you go, that looks boring or that's complicated, I don't understand what any of this is, do the opposite of them. And then when you see a job ad that's amazing, you're like, man, I want to work for this company. Follow their steps. You know, we do not have to reinvent the wheel, but we do, recruiting is marketing. Recruiting is sales. Recruiting is advertising. And you have to, have a good marketing piece to attract somebody to take the double look at your job ad and say, I want to click around on their website and oh my goodness, I want to apply there now because they seem amazing. They have pictures of what I'll be doing. They seem to have a cool environment, virtual or not. There's pictures of employees on there. Side note, if you have pictures of employees on your website anywhere, please make sure you get their permission and talk to maybe an attorney in your legal department on that because you don't want to be, advertising them if they leave and then they say, you don't have permission to put me up there on your website. And then also make sure that it's, crystal clear, the reporting structure, where the position is located physically, if it is remote, if it's a hybrid, what days they need to be in the office. So being as transparent as possible, either with a downloadable like PDF or a brochure. The easiest way, even for the small companies that are listening, is just go create like a really basic, like a GoDaddy website or whoever. I use GoDaddy, and it's super, super easy to change things and make your website look amazing. But you can do that for fairly cheap. And maybe that's just your recruiting platform and it's not connected to your other website. I would prefer it be connected to both. But if you're struggling, you can start from scratch and have some kind of, even a Google form where they go in and answer questions, or they're able to retrieve something and say, oh, there's our benefits brochure, or here's our employee employee relations brochure.
That's an excellent point right there. Hey, within those postings, within the job descriptions, within the information that you're putting out to the public, it's probably not a good idea to advertise what the salary is up front, right? You want to hold that close to the vest and get them in the door first, I mean, right? No,
top secret, top secret. My goodness, I want to jump through the phone right now and like.
No, I know you talked about that earlier too. We see it all the time. You're into that 12-step program, and it's not for something that you shouldn't be doing. This 12-step program is 12 clicks just to try to find out that you can't get the information you need on how much this job is going to pay. And one of the interesting things too is there's an overbearing fear sometimes within an organization that employees are actually prohibited from discussing your pay. And I just want to put this out there. Employees do have the right to discuss their salary. It's protected by law. And while employers may restrict workers from discussing their salary in front of customers during work, they can't prohibit employees from talking about pay on their own time. That is a separate topic, but I did want to just thread that in there real quick.
No, it's actually, it's a great point, JC, because many employers don't know this. The ability to talk about your salary, your pay specifically related to possible concerns of maybe discrimination or unfair practices is protected by the National Labor Relations Act, the NLRA, which is not only for union environments, but non-union. Many people think that it's only for union workers, and it's not. And the NLRA is hot all over people since the beginning of the pandemic. And so please, if you have executives who don't want to list compensation in your job ads, first of all, you need to look to see if you're required to do that by law in your state. There is
excellent
a growing
point.
Yeah, so there's a growing number of states and localities that now require by law employers to disclose pay or pay ranges for positions, either in their ads or specific to their candidates. My rule of thumb is I will not work with clients who do not have their pay listed in their job ads. I know there was a heated debate about this not too long ago between some people that you and I know, JC, on LinkedIn. People were asking me to share their job ads, and I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Your job ad does not list compensation, and that is completely against my beliefs. I am 100% about transparency, and I am not going to help you fill a position if you don't have the pay listed.
And why waste anyone's time? Why waste anyone's time in that process? Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And so, okay, let's just say you can't get your executives to agree to that, and you're not in a state that requires that. Then at least have the ability that if they contact HR or the recruiter, that the recruiter can then say, but this is the range, but rule of thumb really should be to be transparent. Why? Not only so you get the candidate interested, and the ones that are not interested because of the pay, you're not wasting your time and your resources on looking over their resume, contacting them, trying to interview them, for them to just say, what's the pay? No, peace out. I'm done. You've wasted all your time. But above and beyond that, we talked about, managers being the ones that are able to affect retention, and then, obviously recruiting as well because of the word of mouth. If you are if you have managers or any human being, whether they're management or not, if you have a human being recruiting and helping in the interview process of employees or candidates, whether internal or external, and they decline to give compensation and it's required by law, you're getting yourself in trouble.
Yeah.
But not only that, if they say, well, hey, I'm not required to, my company's not releasing it, and so I'm just going to keep that close to my vest. And I have an employee that, or my budget is, I don't know, $50,000. And I have a candidate that says, oh, I only want 38,000. And this candidate over here says, I want 49,000. And the manager chooses the $38,000 one, but you have other positions, same exact positions, or that are closer to 50 grand. And by the way, that candidate that said, yeah, I'll come in for 38 because they didn't know the range happens to be of a minority of some sort, with ability, disability, it could be sexual orientation, race, whatever it might be. Now you're unconsciously violating people's rights, and you may open yourself up to a giant lawsuit on discrimination just because you didn't say, here is the range. It should be 46,000 to 50,000, no higher, no lower.
I have to refer to the books. This all comes from her mind. I'm telling you. Beautiful mind right there. Hey, here's just to piggyback on a few things that you were saying right there. New York State lawmakers did pass a bill that requires private sector employers in the state to disclose salary ranges on job postings. That was as of June 2022. California, Maryland, they require employers to provide the pay scale to applicants upon reasonable request. And from the employee's perspective, the Department of Labor, they have an amazing fact sheet out about Executive Order 11246. Once again, Executive Order 11246. Sounds like I'm calling bingo numbers. I know. It states in there, though, that you do have the right to inquire about, discuss, or disclose your own pay or that of other employees or applicants. I want to make sure we emphasize that last part, or applicants. So there is a large push to make sure this stuff's on the table. This is a beautiful segue. When we're thinking about the job interview, okay, the actual interview now and the questions that are going to be on the table, pay could turn out to be one of those. And we've touched on it already just a little bit, but I've got $1 million question for you here. Let's say you find your candidate, and I do want to circle back to the exact questions and dissect that further coming up in one moment if you have the time. But if the discussion heads down the path of salary and you're beginning to negotiate and you've come to terms and now you're bringing this employee on board for X amount of dollars a year and it is not in line with what you were initially offering, but it fits within the scale. This is just good information to help bring that employee on and you move forward? Or should you start to keep track of that data and information? Use that as historical record to help propel and move forward with the upgrading of your compensation packages, your salary structures and things like that. You know, if you continue to have people come in the door and they turn the job down due to the salary range and you're having to negotiate again and again and again, the writing's on the wall. Use that. Play Moneyball. Use those statistics to make things better, right? Right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And especially for those of you that are listening that have a small company and you don't have all these fancy tools, you can literally just start a spreadsheet and say, okay, well, we have this position and maybe it's you have that same position over and over again. And this is how many times I had to negotiate or renegotiate. And this is why we're not getting people. Here's another thing about pay too. There is actually laws that ban you asking your candidates what they previously made. And most organizations do not know that. And many organizations, their application says, what did you make at this job? And it can be 100% illegal. I actually wrote a quick little blog about it on my website, thehrlady.com. It was in April, but it was actually not me that created this list. It's a company called HR Dive. And so if you go to hrdive.com, they have great information about salary bands, and about all the laws regarding the salary bands. But in, I think it was around April, there's a new law that it comes out in January 1st in the state of Washington that says employers must include a wage scale or a salary range along with information about benefits and compensation in their job posting. This state joins Colorado and New York City, so not New York State, but the city, in requiring employers to disclose pay ranges in job posts. And then again, remember, make sure you know your laws in your locale, not just your state, but possibly your county and city of, can you ask what somebody else's previous pay was? With a candidate's previous pay. Yeah. And so, I mean, here's my thing is, if you did the salary research, you've done the compensation research, you've adjusted the job, maybe your managers are expecting way too much, and you as HR and executive stepped in and say, you know what? No, this job description is unrealistic, and this is why people are failing, quitting, getting fired, whatever. Let's change the job so that it's realistic, that we can get the knowledge, skills, and abilities and or train, and that people can do all of the responsibilities, and not be an all in one. And this happens a lot with small businesses, that we just throw everything at somebody who says, yeah, I'll do it. Right. Well, that person might be successful, but you're rarely going to be able to duplicate that, And so when you go to duplicate it, you realize that employee who is now disgruntled and possibly quit was actually doing 2 or 3 jobs.
Right.
But for the pay of one. Yeah. And so that's why it's so important to do the compensation research, because when you're doing that, that is when you should right size your job description, duties, the title, whatever it is. Again, I don't really care so much about the title. I care about, what are you asking them to do? Are we vetting that out in an interview? Are we holding them accountable? Are we training them? And then are we giving them that pat on the back, preferably with a $ sign, so that they stay and so that they refer other people. But please make sure, after listening to this podcast, that you go and research your states to say, what are the laws regarding asking past salaries, about putting salaries on job ads. And even if you don't have laws in your state or locale, make sure that you know that it is the right thing to do. If you are touting that you're a transparent workplace, then your compensation should be transparent as well. And then guess what, JC? Who cares if employees talk about it? Because everybody already knows we're a transparent workplace.
Exactly. The HR lady, Wendy Sellers at JC, continuing on right here. Wendy, I've got the shovel ready, and we are ready to get knee deep into those interviewing and selection processes and questions, the whole nine. And isn't it fair to say that if you put that posting out there, due process takes due time? You can't cook that amazing steak in 2 minutes. Sometimes you need a little extra time, right? So if that's going out there, let's take that interview process and drag it out as long as we need to. My sarcasm has entered the room before me, right? Right? I mean, a lot of people are losing out on great jobs because the employers are taking too long to come to the table, and employers are losing out on great employees because that employer is more nimble, they're more adept, and they're on the ball. They want to fill that role, and they're not dragging their feet. Is there an ideal timetable or time frame between the time you post that interview and you bring the employee in the door? Should it be 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 2 days, 3 to 7 months?
24 hours. No, I'm just kidding. Please don't have that expectation. So it's going to be different for every organization, but the shortest amount of time as possible. So assuming after today, you're going to have all your ducks in a row before you post that job ad. You're going to have an updated, relevant, accurate, and realistic job description. You're going to have the right pay. You're going to have an amazing set of benefits, or at least explain the benefits that you have and the culture. So that careers website, you're going to have all that marketing piece. You're going to have somebody who is a marketing person, help you write the ad. I could be one of those people. I'd be more than happy to look at your ad and quickly tell you, hey, this is good, this isn't good, this is what you need to do. So feel free to connect with me at any time. On LinkedIn is probably the best way. But, some people, I've been doing this a long time, so I kind of have the knack for it, but not everybody has a marketing headspace. And then if you have everything prepared up front, one more thing you want to have prepared before you post that job ad is, so before you hit click and then in moments you're going to get candidates, we wish, right? But you want to make sure you've talked to the interviewing team all the way down to the receptionist or the administrative support person who's going to help greet those people or schedule appointments. You want to have a meeting with them and say, okay, here is our timeline. We're going live tomorrow with the job ad. What does everybody's schedule look like? Oh, manager, you're on vacation. Boom, we're not going live with the job ad then. Or manager, are you okay with not interviewing the people and having somebody else interview them for you? And so really, really, really being prepared. I even tell my clients, I go ahead because I usually have access to their calendar, and I say, we're putting the job ad out, say Thursday, and we're going to have candidates immediately. We tend to get a lot of candidates over the weekend as well. But what we want to do is starting maybe Tuesday, start sorting through those candidates and scheduling phone interviews. So anybody who's involved in the phone interviews, whether it's HR, an admin person, whoever it might be, I block out their calendars for that whole week. I say, okay, from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m.
Focus time. Time. Yep.
And if we don't book it, we don't book it. But at least they're not overbooking.
Right.
And, oh, I'm sorry, I can't interview you now because I was scheduled for a meeting. How could you get scheduled for a meeting if I already blocked out your calendar?
Exactly. Exactly. So, hey, quick question here for you, though. How do you feel about those interview questions that a lot of employers feel they have to ask? You know which ones I'm talking about. What is your biggest weakness? What's your greatest strength? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? What about those type of questions?
It really depends on the role. I mean, if it's an entry-level role, geez, give the person a break, right? It's more, you should be more making them feel like they can not be so nervous and stop shaking at the interview, Yeah. But a lot of people, I mean, interviews are the worst thing ever, not only for the manager, but for the candidate. It is, yeah. I mean, you're given, the manager or the HR team or whoever's doing the initial interview are basically giving somebody maybe 3 minutes of your time, even if you even take that long to look over their resume, a couple minutes of your time on the phone interview to say, yes, you're going to the next stage, or I'm rejecting you. And like, that person put a lot into applying for your job. Please don't make your application so complicated. I do think for some roles, especially if they're professional roles, and then if they're going to be supervising or leading a team or a project, those questions about where you're going to be in 3, 5, 10 years are important. But for other people, or other roles, I should say, it's not important, because seriously, if you haven't been able to retain somebody for 3 years, why are you, your only goal is to hire somebody who wants to stay with your company for 3 years?
Good point. Good point. Hey, what about some of those other borderline questions, Wendy? What if you're putting the power in the hands of that manager and the interviewees in front of them, and they simply ask, hey, where are you from originally? Or do you go to church? Are you married? Or when did you graduate high school? Or lastly, how would you feel, Wendy, about managing a team of all men?
Yeah, you have to, first of all, folks that are listening to this, please do not put that job ad out and allow people to start booking candidates for interviews until you do some basic training. And I can help with this as well. But people need to know what unacceptable interview questions are and what acceptable interview questions are. For example, oh, wow, you look so young. How old are you? Unacceptable, unacceptable, unacceptable. Now, the interesting thing is candidates sometimes bring up these things that are you as a manager or as HR or even as the receptionist are not supposed to talk about.
Excellent point.
They might say like, wow, you look so young. How do you have 20 years experience? That is usually a conversation that is meant to be nice and, oh, we're just trying to make you feel at home, but could be borderline discriminatory. So the candidate sometimes brings those things up like, oh, I started working at 14, or I moved from this country, or I have this ability or disability, or I know there's not a lot of people in this zip code that are my race or gender orientation, and they bring it up. I'm not telling you to ignore it. It is uncomfortable, but you should say is you should have a list, which is related to the job description, by the way, like a checklist to say, okay, well, thank you for giving me that information, but we actually don't record that information in interviews. And so just so you know, it's not being written down on my my checklist or on my score sheet so that they know. Trust me, it's kind of incredibly awkward, no matter what. It's awkward for everybody involved, but I'd rather you let them know up front that that is information that we don't want to know or that we're not recording. And I don't want you to feel uncomfortable, but I do want you to know that I'm not writing that down or recording it. And I'm going to go on to the next question.
Wendy, the HR lady. JC, I've got one final thing here for you. The employees are with you now. Should you give those new hires a chance to share their feedback about the company in general and the onboarding process in particular?
Absolutely. I'm sure you probably have a boatload of stats on this, but most new hires leave, not most, many new hires leave within the first few months. And we need to know why. Obviously,
31%, actually. 31% of workers have quit a job within the first 6 months, believe it or not.
I believe it. I'm surprised they even lasted that long, to be honest. And during this this pandemic that we're still in, I would think the statistics have probably increased even more. Why? Because it has become socially acceptable to have short-time jobs. And let's just say you and I are competitors and we're interviewing the same candidate and JC, and you went and hired that person and they left. I don't care that they left you. I'm just like, oh my God, yeah, come back. Yeah, we want you. We've already interviewed you. You turned us down. Yep, come back. Like, I don't even care at that point that they were only with you for 2 months and they tell me, it didn't work out. Okay, fine, whatever. Come on in. Let's interview again. Let's get this deal closed. Can you start Tuesday? It's become more acceptable because we're desperate and there's not enough candidates and there's not enough, not just candidates, but talent out there. And so when we fall in love with the candidate, we're waiting for them to leave the next person and bring them in. But it definitely, feedback is a two-way street. So we can't just, the days of us going, okay, we're going to give a 90-day review and then we'll talk to you again in a year. They're gone. And if you're doing that, your employees know that you don't necessarily care about them. And even if you do, they want more information on a regular basis.
And folks, truly, I mean, biggest part of the reason there, too, is it's helping reinforce your culture. It's helping reinforce the transparency. You're going to make those employees feel valued at the end of the day, and you're going to support that open and honest culture. It's going to accelerate the new hire productivity, and ultimately, you're going to improve your onboarding process by facilitating that pathway, that two-way feedback. I didn't mean to jump in. I just had a passion to bring it to the table right then and there for you.
No, it's so important. I would rather find out at 4 months because there's been two-way communication and transparency and open lines of communication. So I, as the HR person, would rather a new hire come to me at 4 months, jump over their manager or even their manager's manager and say, I'm not comfortable going to them, but I'm having an issue. I have a medical issue. I am not catching on as much as I thought I would, and I don't know what to do. I'd rather you tell me that at 4 months so that we could stop, train you in a different manner because not everybody learns the same way. And, and stop you from quitting at 5 or 6 months, as you said in the statistics, versus just saying, nah, no news is good news. It's fine. Because managers usually know when people aren't catching on, but all too often they're busy and they keep going, oh, I'll talk to them. And then they don't. So this goes back to, how I was saying, before you press, post for the job ad to have your managers all scheduled for an interview for the next 2 weeks, and let the candidate know this is a 3-step process. You're going to talk to this administrative person first, and they're going to ask you a few go, no-go questions. Once you pass that, you're going to talk to the manager. Once you pass that, you're going to talk to the director. Then I'm going to give you an offer. So they know what the steps are. Well, it should be the same thing once they're hired. At, the first week, this is what's going to happen. So I also like to have my clients give a calendar of events, so a schedule of events for the first 6 to 12 months of employment. Obviously, there's going to be a lot more going on in day one, week one, first month, 3 months. But so they know you are going to go and maybe do a mini internship in another department for a week so you could better understand our marketing side, our sales side, or our production side, so it all comes together. So the recruiting process really goes through the onboarding all the way, for some jobs, it could be 3 to 5 years if it's a job that takes a long time to get, incredibly proficient at.
In that feedback process, it's really important, folks, to focus on remaining positive and providing constructive comments through the process. Positive feedback is a huge motivational tool for the employee and your entire workforce, especially the person that's giving that constructive, positive feedback at the same time. They're going to feel good doing that. And for the people receiving it as well, look, delivering that positive feedback, the person handing that out, it's going to help balance the constructive points to follow. And it's important just to remember that two-way street. Just keep it open, keep it transparent, keep it honest, and stay positive among all things, if you could. I don't know, a couple words of wisdom from the old man with the deep voice.
I think one of my final comments about recruiting and hiring and reducing turnover of new hires is to use more than one source to post your job ads. And I know that's hard, it's time intense, and it's expensive, but you could just do a quick search online. I just did one of the most common job sites for people to use. And it's from a money.com article, and it's Indeed, which I think a lot of people know, ZipRecruiter, LinkedIn, Glassdoor, AngelList, and for government jobs is USA Jobs. They do cost money, so you got to make sure you get your act together up front and be prepared. And don't use all 6 or 5, because most of you probably aren't government employers, but don't use all of them, but test it out. Say, for these jobs, I'm going to use these 2 sites. Or for these jobs over here, I'm going to use these other sites. The other site that is 100% free for everyone to use, however, you do need to register, and sometimes that's a hassle, is your local unemployment office. It's all online. It's usually called a career site or workforce, but, we refer to it as the unemployment. But every state has one. There's the side that's unemployment, and then there's the side for employers, and it's completely free. And guess what? If candidates are receiving unemployment, they have to be registered on those websites. We already pay for this with our tax dollars. So there's options out there. And of course, there's social media too, but you just need to make sure that the social media that you're using is the social media that your candidates would be using.
Yeah, I would definitely post something over on those unemployment boards like that than going to Craigslist. That's just me. That's just me.
Yeah, for sure.
Hey, folks, putting employee well-being at the forefront of their talent, of your talent management strategies is so critical nowadays. Enacting policies that prevent burnout while enabling employees to flourish, both professionally and personally, helps reinforce your culture and keeps things positive along the way. With that being said, we're around that time in the program, Wendy, where it's time to wrap up. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I'm JC. It's been my pleasure to be back here for you. The HR lady, Wendy Sellers, some final words from you, please.
Final words are, I am here to help. So I can't help myself from helping, which is why I'm here on the podcast. If you have any additional information or need some advice, or even just need me to review a job ad for you, I'd be happy to do so. Just message me on LinkedIn, Wendy Sellers, or you can email me directly at wendy@thehrlady.com. Take care.